Hello, everyone. Welcome to our final panel of GISH with the finest human we could find. We are mere hours away, less than 12 hours now from the end of the hunt. I wanted to do a couple of quick announcements before I introduce our esteemed guest, our repeat. Like, you're the Tom Hanks of our Saturday Night Live, Bobak. Um, we are. I just wanted to say we're closing in on $180,000 raised for LGBTQIA plus Ukrainians and Ukrainians with disabilities. You are phenomenal, phenomenal people. You are dreams realized. You are magic. We can't overstate how proud we are of you, and so grateful. I just want to encourage you to upload all of your stuff as early as possible, so you don't wait until the last minute. There's always a little server crunch. All of our procrastinators in the audience. And closing ceremony today at 4 p.m. PT, 7 p.m. ET, Eastern. It's going to be live plus streaming. I will be there. There will be humans in the room. It's a beautiful space. We're so excited to do it. If half of the things we have planned go right, I will be proud. Anyway, let's not dilly dally, shall we? We have hours. Bobak, how are you today?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I'd rather not answer that question. Thank you for asking. It's going great. Obviously you've been here before, but we have quite a few new people this time around. You are a flight engineer at NASA's JPL Jet Propulsion Laboratory. You've served on the Cassini-Huygens and the Mars Science Laboratory Curiosity missions, and now you work in the I think it's the NISAR
I say nice
satellite.
star.
Okay, Earth observation mission. So you've talked to us about robots. You're a brilliant human being, but you came to fame sometime back as hot. I'm going to say it right. Hot Mohawk guy.
I think it was just NASA Mohawk guy.
Okay, fine. I'll add the hot. I'll give you that for this one. And what I think I actually have a photo of you here. Please hold. Is that, sir? Is that you?
That is me crying,
Okay.
crying moments after we landed a rover on Mars.
And President Obama himself spoke about how you were the new cool face of NASA when the world saw you, and that was 10 years ago today. Can you believe that?
Yes, I can, and it is hard. Yeah, just a little bit wild to think it's 10 years ago already.
It is, and so I mean, if you had to say, what does the face of NASA look like today? Like what's changed?
I think it looks even better. I think it looks a lot more like, the country does, which is great. When I
Yeah,
go to lunch or get out of the building more often, the teams, the people, they look a lot more like the kind of people you'd see on the street anywhere, I think,
yeah.
in the country. And I love that. I want space to be a place for all of us. And I'm excited to see it getting more and more in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. More representation, but wide open. I love it. And what has Curiosity accomplished in these past 10 years? Can you share that?
Yeah, of course. So I mean, we hit the ground running, so to speak, on Mars. We very quickly found evidence of water in the environment that we landed, or past water in the environment that we landed. We found really strong evidence of habitability on Mars, meaning that those ancient environments are ones in which we think life could have survived. And now, the journey for really the almost 8 or 9 years has been this kind of crawl up the mountain. What's really cool about Mount Sharp, we landed right next to it in this crater called Gale Crater, is the mountain has all these layers. And so we've been sort of tracking our way up the mountain. I think it's about 2,000 feet that we've climbed now so far. And each of those layers represents a different part of Martian history that we can kind of tell. So we've drilled over 35 times on the surface of Mars since we landed there. And each one of those kinds of gives us a little bit of a story, right? With the first rocks looking very gray, and now we're seeing sort of like different colors in the drill tailings that we're seeing. So every one of those kind of represents a little data point for us to tell what happened on Mars. And maybe what those ancient environments were like if life could have lived there.
Wow. I mean, it's almost hard to comprehend for a layperson. I think just to think of the scope of that and what effort it took to get to that point, even in decades of work like that. Um, I mean, I don't want to start anything here. I don't want to like rock the boat here, but earlier this week we spoke to an astronomy journalist, Fraser Kane from
Yeah.
Universe Today. And when asked by an audience member if humankind might truly live on planets someday, I'm just gonna quote him here, and I'd love to get your reaction to this. If you have any words of response? He said, "I think in the short term it is not going to happen the way people are hoping. I think a lot of us have this near-term vision of a city on Mars with 1 million people. It is possible some entrepreneur is planning some such thing. Mars sucks. It is the worst. Space sucks. The moon sucks. You have radiation. You have a lack of breathable oxygen." I mean, he goes on. We have this romantic notion about living on Mars. Remember, this is my favorite part. Go spend a couple years in Antarctica in a hole and see how you feel about that, and then remember Mars is worse. Do you have anything to say?
I mean, honestly, Mars is not I know a lot of people joke about a planet B. It's definitely not going to be that, right? I think with very dedicated resources, we can make a good place for a few people to live, but it is incredibly challenging, right? It's hostile. I know we joke about Australia being a place that wants to kill you. Mars wants to kill you more. So at least the air in Australia is breathable, so that's a big advantage. But in reality, I think it's going to be like Antarctica and other places where we send a few researchers, hopefully, to understand it better, maybe provide some context, maybe be able to make some real-time decisions that we can't with the rovers. But it will be a very focused effort for some very long time, and some like cat walking around. I mean, we won't have pets on Mars for a very long time also, so I don't know that I really want to go that much to a place where we can't have that kind of stuff. But I'm still hopeful that people will get there. But I hope that we just kind of choose the best people to sort of represent us all and share the experience for the rest of us, here on, I think, the best planet we've found so far.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that diversity, obviously biodiversity, these diversity questions, they ensure survivability, they ensure healthfulness of environments. And why shouldn't that be in our scientific communities? Why shouldn't that be in our planning to one day seek out these other places to live and these other sort of excursions? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now you are also, I'm just going to say it, we're getting a lot of comments about the cat. Would you like to introduce your cat? I think
that was Lady. She just walked past. There's 2 other ones out here on the deck. Hopefully they'll come join in a little bit.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I would be remiss if we didn't introduce all of our guest
understand.
panelists.
I mean, in fact, I remember there was a great tweet earlier in the pandemic. Like, if your pet walks in, you have to, obligatory introduction is required. So
100%.
Yeah.
Also, definitely going to do a pull quote of Australia wants to kill you, but Mars wants to kill you more. I think that's very sciencey. You're now the fault protection lead at NISAR. Can you explain? I mean, I don't know what fault protection is. I've never protected a fault in my life. What does that mean?
So, the cool thing about our spacecraft, our robotic ones, is that so much of it has to happen without humans in the loop, and we have to make these very quick decisions about the safety of the spacecraft. In our case, we are, one of our big challenges is very early on, we have to deploy a massive 12-meter diameter reflector. So, some almost 40 feet diameter reflector that allows us to do the radar mission that we want to do and understand the Earth. And all of that has to happen. Yes, there can be communications with us on the ground, but some of the decision making is, if it took me 10 seconds to respond, right, for me to see a piece of telemetry and smash a button that says stop something, it could be damaged already. So a lot of what I work on is what we call autonomy, is letting the spacecraft know what are the safe conditions, what are unsafe conditions, if something unsafe occurs, what to do, how to let us know on the Earth what happened, and what actions maybe to take. And so there's a lot of just, and you can imagine the same thing kind of on the Mars missions, right, where they're minutes away. We have more and more of those challenges to solve. So the Earth ones are a little easier, hopefully, and that we're closer to home, and the speed of light's right there, gets you there in a second or two. But the ones on Mars and other missions, all this challenge is really about figuring out how to make sure the spacecraft are safe when we can't talk to them fast enough. So that's the goal. And with this one, obviously, just we're trying to make sure the science happens. So we want to make sure that nothing bad happens before we get to the good science.
Wow. So the quality of the communication is as important in some ways as the science itself.
That's right.
Yeah.
We need to know what happened too, right? I mean, many times we don't have the spacecraft solve its own problems entirely. We just need it to tell us this specific part went bad. And also sometimes, you can imagine in space, making sure that you point to Earth and tell us that information is critical. If you were somehow pointed away from the Earth, we need you to point back to Earth, give us that information. Oftentimes at very low data rates, because we want to make sure it's robust to whatever happened, right? If your antenna is bad, or if something's wrong on your system, we want to hear about it, and then we can make hopefully the most informed decision from the ground. But in the meantime, stay safe, right? That's kind of the goal. Hunker down and stay safe.
And actually, Alex here asks, how exactly do you predict or determine what those dangerous situations for the robotic spacecraft would be? How do you predict or
we do a lot of things. So one of them is we look at a top-down, system. Like, how could my deployment of my reflector fail? How could my pointing of the spacecraft fail? How could my communications fail? How could my you name it, all the things that need to, all the functions that we need to provide. We look at them and try to break them down. What is it? Is the reason I can't communicate because the radio is damaged? Is the reason I can't communicate because the spacecraft's pointed in the wrong direction? Is it because the power is low and I can't turn on the radio? So we look at that level and try to break it down into then, okay, well, what could cause my power to be low? It's because the solar arrays aren't pointed on the sun. So we break it down just like any big spacecraft or any big engineering or science challenge. You break it down into smaller and smaller pieces that you can do something about. And in that case, right, let's say it's the radio has been damaged. We'll usually say, well, we're not sure if it's the radio damaged or the Earth isn't talking, so we give you some time. And if it's been more than n hours, we're going to try to switch the radios. And then if that doesn't work, we're going to try to change the original radio, but a different antenna. And so we do the different combinations of things to sort of figure it out until we've exhausted all the possibilities on the spacecraft of getting to us. But it's from that level top down, and then from the very bottom up, we'll look at very specific parts and be like, what if this part fails? How would I know that part failed? What's the indication? Is it that something gets hot? Is it that I see a short on the system and the voltage drops? And then we start working our way back out of there. And so it's this kind of top down meets bottoms up approach, but it is, that is years of work. I mean, I spent 3 or 4 years doing the analyses, with a lot of people, of course, not just by myself. A lot of people doing those analyses, reviewing them with, the experts around the lab and the community. And, hopefully all of us, have done our best job of protecting against it. Because at the end of the day, this is science for the people, and we want to make sure that we get it to them. They paid their hard-earned taxpayer dollars to get that.
And we've got a question. That's important work, obviously, because it protects not only the process, but it protects the beginning, middle, and end of that process, obviously, and what we can do with it. And that's how we keep leveling up our understanding of these things. Verlinda is asking, can you share a lesson that you've learned in working on these projects, or maybe the Mars, exploring Mars, or the actual exploration of Mars that you want to send to everybody? Anything you want to share with the world?
My cat's found a bug to chase. I think, the lesson that the experiential lesson that I think I've learned the most, and I love engineering as an approach to the world, but that's very personal. That's not necessarily for everybody. But it's kind of gives, I love having a framework from which I can kind of evaluate things. But the lesson that I really loved the most, that I think kind of worked on me with curiosity, was it was a long journey from the start to the finish, but by sort of getting this, idea of I should know all the answers and everything out of my head, and instead sort of just treating it like an apprenticing job, it made it so much better. I think yeah, it was so hard when I first came in to recognize the distinction between just people who had been there a long time and people who are smarter than me. And there are plenty of people who are still smarter than me. But I think one of the things you learn is that there's just a lot of experience out there. When you're starting out, it's really it's easy to beat yourself up for feeling like you don't know something. But in reality, it's just that people have done it for a lot longer than you. And so that kind of mental shift of going from I need to be performing where everybody else is, but instead of no, I'm apprenticing and I'm learning on this job, and some of the things I learn I'll apply immediately and be helpful to the team, and some of the things I won't apply for 10, 15 years until the project where that responsibility is mine. That made it a lot better for me. And in fact, I would say made me more successful by kind of taking the ego out. All right. I saw a cat update request. So the lady's back.
Lady's back.
She's fine. She's not chasing the wasp, which is great because she has been stung by a wasp on her paw before. So
she has not learned her lesson. Got it.
Yeah.
Along those lines of what you're talking about, and the feeling of like being junior in a situation, and then discounting your credibility or your intelligence in that situation is huge. I think a lot of people think that time somehow equates to that kind of wisdom or that kind of ability within a space. I know that you're really deeply engaged in getting the word out about STEM and STEAM, and particularly for people of color, and changing the game in terms of representation. Do you want to talk a little bit about why that's important to you, and what you can share for others to help forward that?
Yeah, I mean, there's two sort of aspects to it. One is I'm invested in the future of, selfishly, I'm invested in the future of space and us exploring and doing, the work that like I'm always hopeful we'll get to, but, whether it's my generation or the next generation or whatever, when we talk about finding life elsewhere in the universe, or talking about, putting people in unique places that we haven't been before, I want all that to happen. And so even selfishly, I just want all the best and brightest of the world to be able to help us, tackle these incredible challenges and difficult problems. And that's not just true for my industry. Of course, I want that for every industry. So it's really critical, even from a completely selfish perspective, for me to see that every opportunity is given to everybody to kind of participate. And I want, the best and brightest folks. I don't want, 50% of the best and brightest folks available to my team. I want them all. Mm-hmm. So that's very selfishly. And then the other part of it is, I honestly believe that, with those kinds of changes, it's just an investment in ourselves at the end of the day, right? Having the best and brightest people, making people feel part of something that you love. That's the best way to see its survival and see it grow and flourish and do more things. So it's such a strong part of that is kind of the whatever we call it, anti-gatekeeping, right? That I kind of feel like it is, which is making sure that we're capable of that. And then locally, the way I do that, of course, is just trying to interact with as many folks as I can at work, but also just create the environment that I would want to be part of on my team for everybody, and trying to make everybody feel welcome and feel encouraged. And where I can now at this point, like very thankfully, be able to provide career advice and connect people to mentors and everything else. So that's, sort of the think globally, act locally sort of version of my thing, which is do that. And of course, as much as I can, try to do, outreach on the side of what is more than a full-time job, unfortunately, building spacecraft. But I love it. I would, I'm so thankful that I get to be part of something that is bigger than me, that transcends the generations. And I want that for everybody. I can't tell you what a great sense of feeling it is to be part of something like that. And I would want everybody to have that feeling at some level.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I think we are all engaged in this community in trying to see that vision of things change, and also, journey outward and inward to really understand what we're doing and not look away and not, dumb it down and make it less important than it actually is, and you're doing that, and we really appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, thank you.
On that note, please, everyone, go follow Bobak on social media for wisdom, cat advice, you name it. You have many talents, Bobak.
Cats and spacecraft.
Cats in spacecraft. Cats in space. And now for our challenge, our GISH item in these last hours. Speaking of space and animals. Oh, there you are again.
Yeah.
I just, oops, that happened again. It is not a mullet, first of all. Okay, moving on. Image, curiosity, yes, I'm going to speak English now. Ready? Curiosity Rover the pup. Your cat is the Leo constellation. Dress up a pet in real life to become a famous space icon. Don't have any fur babies of your own? Draw or paint your ideal space pet. Use this fun mascot in a poster to promote the importance of STEM and STEAM in the lives of young people. Post your creation online and tag at Tweets Out Loud and hashtag GISH. That is 21 points. Thank you, Bobak. Thank you for your time and thank you for your service. Really appreciate you.
Thank you. And thank you everyone who's participating in this. This is amazing. Always fun to be here.
All right. Thanks, everybody. All right. Closing ceremony, 4 p.m. Pacific. Be there. We'll be on YouTube Live and on Zoom. If you're on Zoom, wear your weirdest outfit, your whatever outfit you deem weird or fun, and bring anything you've created because you may be pulled into the stream, okay? And then we're going to have a dance party live and at home, and everybody's invited. Everybody's invited to dance. All right. Thank you, Bobak.